24 on the road to 18-inch arms. And we're at the gym. It's fucking arm day. And I'm going to take you through my pec massage routine. So, something that can happen. I think my head's probably cut off, but you can see my shoulders. So, if you let your shoulders hang at your sides like this, or your hands hang at your sides like this, and if your palms are turned in at all, so if you point your thumbs out, or you could hold on to some pencils, whatever, if your thumbs point inwards, then that indicates you have an internally rotated shoulder, meaning your shoulders are rotated this way, okay? Ideally, you want your palms to be facing directly forward. And for me, this left shoulder in particular is fairly internally rotated. And now one of the primary causes of that can be tight pec major. There can be other muscles as well, your lats, potentially your subscapularis could be involved. Regardless, I found for me that one of the issues, especially with this left side I've talked about before, is to release the pec major and the pec minor, pec in general. And I've found one of the most effective ways to do that is through massage rather than just stretching. I do some stretches for the chest, but primarily releasing that tension I know is an issue. Using a lacrosse ball I've found to be the most effective method, and I'll do it sometimes standing on a wall, but I find probably the best way is to just lay on it, okay? And so this is a staple in my warm-up routine. So I lay down like this, take the ball, I put it right on my chest there. I kind of move it around depending on where it feels the most tender, and then I just lay like this, and I take a fucking nap. I usually let it sit for about 5 minutes. Sometimes the muscle starts spasming and twitching. If I can find a good spot to release. Often I'll do the right side as well. The right pec doesn't usually need as much release. Primarily the left one is the main focus. And so if you have any type of imbalance in your body that you know about and you're aware of, I think doing some type of pre-workout release of the tight muscles can be really useful. And it's not going to be a long-term solution, but it will help you to release some of the tension temporarily so that you can work through a fuller range of motion during your workout. And so if you know that your chest muscles are a problem, or maybe if you've done the Thomas test, I've made a lot of short form content about the Thomas test and tight hip flexors. It's a simple way to test for tight hip flexors. If you're unfamiliar, you can just Google or YouTube Thomas test. You'll see what it is. If you know you've got tight hip flexors, or one hip flexor is tighter than the other, and you're going to go train legs, a lot of people will say, oh, static stretching isn't good before working out. As a warm-up, I agree. But if you know you have certain issues or imbalances, then doing some type of static stretching for the hip flexor, say, or some massage for the hip flexor, or some kind of dynamic mobility routine for your hip flexor before you go work out, I think is really effective. Because if you're stuck kind of in an imbalanced posture, or, you know, in my case, right, that left pec is chronically or long term, it's shortened and tight, tending to get into that position all the time. If I go straight into an arm workout without releasing it, it just seizes up further and further. And I'm not really able to access as full a range of motion, particularly for the overhead movements for the triceps. So yeah, that's my take on that, and how I think doing pre-workout mobility stuff can be very effective. Generally, if you're moving well, you don't really have any specific issues, I don't think doing a bunch of massage or static stretching before your workout is necessarily what you should do. But if you know you have a certain type of issue somewhere, then and you know how to address it, whether it be through static stretching, dynamic stretching, or potentially massage. And I would encourage you to experiment some too. Sometimes it takes a little bit to figure out what the best strategy is going to be. Like I was mentioning, for me, I find that this technique for releasing tension in the chest is best, as opposed to stretching it directly. Although I do a little bit of that as well. And I'll show you some of the dynamic kind of warm-up stuff that I do I'm going to take you guys through all my warm-up sets today. Um, and while I'm doing the warm-up sets, I kind of do some dynamic, like warm-up arm swing stuff that I find helps to release the chest as well. Primarily, I'm trying to release my chest and my lats. Those are the two big problem areas in my upper body, as well as upper traps can be a bit of an issue. I do some foam rolling for those. But yeah, I think in each one of these, I'm just going to do like a little piece of my mobility routine. Because if I take you through the whole thing every time, each one of these videos is going to be like 2 hours long. And I already tend to ramble enough. So I'm kind of moving on to a different spot here. The crazy thing is, once I sort of let the lacrosse ball just sink in, I feel it like in my rhomboids, in my back, in like the space in between your shoulder blade and your spine there, where your rhomboids sit, your mid traps. Whew. Starting to get a little bit of a spasm as it releases. And I think one of the reasons that this technique is particularly effective is because you can just fully relax all of your muscles, right? You're not even using anything to stand up and move around at all. You can just completely lay. So the plan today for the arm workout is going to be the fast and heavy day. So I'm going to do 5 rounds of the superset. We're going to be resting long periods, 6-minute round. 6 minutes of rest per round. So the idea is resting to full recovery, trying to move heavy weight with a fast, explosive tempo for not that much volume, just 5 rounds. And so I'll take you through all the warm-up sets that I do. I probably do like 6 or 7 warm-up sets, which I think is a really key thing to avoid injury and make sure that your muscles are primed and you've really got the movement nailed down. So you get more out of the movement, and it gives you the opportunity to kind of screen for any issues you might be having in your joints. Whereas if you just kind of jump into your first working set, you don't give yourself a chance to go, oh shit, my like shoulder's kind of janky, and I should do something about that before I go to push heavyweight, or maybe not even push heavyweight if the issue is that significant. So I'm a big fan of warm-up sets. So I think that's good enough for this pack here on this side. And I was mentioning, I think in the last video or one of the ones before, that I've had some people, usually I'm just laying here, like, not talking to the camera, and people come up to me because I'm just laying like this. It looks like I'm taking a nap. I'm like, man, are you okay? Are you alive? Probably looks so freaking stupid. But really, I'm working, man. I'm working on releasing that today. I'm telling you, if you have tight chest muscles, oh, this is a glorious way to release some of that tension. A really effective thing to do before you go and train anything upper body. If you know you have tight chest or one side is an issue, I highly recommend it. Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up there, and I will see you once I've gone through. So the rest of my mobility work is going to take about an hour on a good day, an hour and a half on a rough day. Just depends how my body's feeling. So I'm going to do all that without recording, and then I will see you guys once I'm ready to start training, and I'm going to do all my warm-up sets and some of kind of the dynamic like arm swings and stuff that I do sort of right before I'm going to training and in between some of the warm-up sets. So we'll see you there. So it's nothing that fancy, but I'm going to do a bunch of arm circles like this. And primarily I'm just trying to loosen up my chest, front of my shoulders, as well as my lats. So I'll do like 30 of these puppies. And then I'll do overhead where I take a big breath in. And then lower down slow. Reverse. And I'm thinking about breathing into my back. So as I raise up, I find it releases a lot of the tension in my upper back, my traps. I'll do about 10 of these. Big deep breaths. We go here. 10 of these.
I find that helps to loosen up the psoas a little bit more, right in here. We'll go back to arm circles, but we'll do bigger circles this time. It's also helping to loosen up the anterior delts, bicep tendon a little bit. I kind of gauge it depending on what's feeling tight too. Okay, now I'll do my first warm-up set, which is going to be light, 45 pounds. So yeah, first warm-up set, the 45-pound dumbbell, which is like a little less than 50% of my working weight, which I think is roughly a good recommendation. So I'm really focusing on pointing my elbows into the mirror. Oh, letting it stretch me out. Oh. We're just doing like 6 or 7 reps. Just to warm up the joints. You can't see me. I'm gonna grab the 55. And usually what I'll do is I'll just go up 10 pounds. And then I'll throw in things like a little bit of wrist warm up. So I'll stretch my forearms and wrists out like this. I find instead of holding it, I just like wiggle back and forth like this. I don't really know why. And I'll get the thumb too. And kind of move the thumb. So I find a lot of this all in here. Gets tight. So we'll try to mobilize the thumb a little bit. We'll go to the other side. Then I'll probably do another 10 arm circles. I'm also gauging it on how things feel. If something feels really bad, for example, I'm getting a lot of elbow pain in the right elbow, sometimes that happens. I'll go pull out the lacrosse ball again and I'll work out the anterior delt and the pec on this side, and that alleviates the tension. So partially, I'm using the warm-up sets as like a screening for any issues I might be having in my joints. All right, so if you just jump straight into your working set, you don't really give yourself a chance to potentially detect any problems. And also, it gives you the opportunity to focus on your cues more. I'm really locking in that, keeping my shoulders down and pointing my elbows in, which is harder to do with really heavy weight. So a lightweight is good for that. So that's 55. And I go up another 10 to 65. And do another wrist stretch, the reverse this time, for the top part of the forearm. I don't spend too long on the wrist work. My wrists don't usually give me too much trouble, so I'll just hold for 15 seconds each side, roughly. Do 10 more of these. Deep breaths. And the primary goal is to get the muscles around the shoulder joint as loose and mobile as possible. I have some issues with chronic tension in the pecs, the lats, anterior delts. Third warm-up set. We're up to the 65-pound dumbbells. Still pretty light, but focus on the cues. Let the dumbbell pull me back. Oh, I feel a stretch in my lats. Oh. That's good. Feels okay. Now we go up to the 75. Now we're starting to get cooking a little bit. Another thing I'm focusing on in the warm-up sets is like really activating the muscles that are going to hold my shoulders in position. So with this exercise, your serratus anterior, which is a muscle that protracts your shoulder blades or rounds your shoulder blades forward. So when you're in this position here, that muscle is highly activated to stabilize your scapula. So I'm thinking about things like that as I do the warm-up sets as well. Because once you jump into your working weight and everything's intense, it's hard to focus on a lot of these like little details. I'll start to drink my intra-workout cocktail, which is just Gatorade powder and carb powder. It gives me sustained energy as we're off the fucking pre-addict for a while, but we're off of it right now. Okay, what's that? 45, 55, 65. Warm-up set number 4. That's good. And the idea with the warm-up sets is not to fatigue yourself at all. Just to screen for any issues you're having with your joints and warm up the working muscles. That's why I'm just doing like 4 to 6 reps with like a kind of regular tempo. So 85. This will be warm up set number 5. Usually do some more arm swings and shit. Nothing feels like too bad. So I'm not going to do any additional ball work. So, warm up set number 5. We probably have one more after this. That's good. So now we go up to the 95 for the last warm-up set, which I kind of think of as like a primer set. So I'm going to not push to failure or anywhere close, but I'm going to go maybe 8 reps with like a little bit more intensity. So it's kind of halfway in between like a chill warm-up set and an actual working set as the last sort of warm-up primer set before my first working set. So probably rest 45 seconds. And I can tell that my right pec and anterior delt's a little bit tight as I'm getting pain down here in my forearm. So the issue is stemming from right there. But it'll just be something to manage throughout the workout, which almost every session there's like some kind of little issue that I'm working through. But you just need to be smart about it. Take your time. Listen to your body, but also you don't need to freak out and fucking stop the workout just because you have a little bit of an issue with something. Okay. So we'll go for 8 reps here. A primer set. Not a working set, but not a warm-up set, 0 intensity. So we're going to go a little bit of juice. Yep, it's good. The other reason I think warm-up sets are useful, because if you're trying to move a decent amount of weight, I find that they're effective for kind of priming your body and getting you ready to lift with intensity. Whereas if I just go straight into my first working set, it's hard to like bring a good amount of juice. And I like to get a little bit of the carb powder, Gatorade powder in me. And we'll rest another minute or two. And I'll do the first working set with 100. And with this workout, I'm going fast, explosive tempo. Focus on trying to move heavy weight. But I don't want the number of reps to be the top priority. I want the top priority to still be the way the movement feels and the fatigue on the muscle. And I would like to get maybe 15, 16 reps, but I find if you just focus on the reps, it takes away from potentially your form, your tempo, the activation of the muscle. So there's a bit of a balance there if you're trying to push more weight for more reps each time, but you should think of it as like just your second priority. Whereas your top priority is like how the movement feels, what your range of motion is, what your tempo is, and you're still trying to push for a good amount of reps. But if you start getting addicted to like the weight going up or doing more reps each time, I found it can take away from the actual effectiveness of the set in terms of building muscle. And if your main goal is lifting heavy weight, you're just trying to get strong. That's a different fucking ball game. But if you're training for muscle growth, I think it's useful to progress the weight and progress the reps, but um, you don't want that to get carried away and start to sacrifice your form. Is basically what I'm saying. Let's go. Woo. Okay. Oh, usually the first working set feels a little bit janky, and I find like second, third, fourth working sets are the best, but that's also why my actual working weight is going to be 105. So I'll do my first working set with a slightly lighter weight and higher reps, like aiming for 15. We got 16 there. So then the rest of the working sets will be with 105, probably in the 12 to 14 rep range. I'm not going to film set 2, 3, or 4. I'll film the last round. And I do a similar warm up for biceps. It's not quite as extensive because I find I don't need to like prime my shoulders as much for bicep curls as I do for this movement. So for biceps, I'll do maybe 2 to 3, maybe 4 warm up sets, and then my first working set. So I'll check back in once I get to round 5, towards the end of the workout. I'll film my last couple sets. Round 5. So we did rounds 2, 3, and 4 with the 105, getting 13, 12, and 11, I think, the reps. So I'm going to try and get 11 again. I always try to go for what I got on the previous set. Sometimes we don't make it, but you give her a go. Resting about 6 minutes in between each one of these. So the tricep muscle and the bicep muscle individually get 6 minutes rest. Total, I get about 2.5 to 3. So let's go for 11 reps. I got a little weight kind of jimmy rigged on here. Come on. That's 10. Whew. I think, based on feel, I might go for one more set with the slightly lighter weight. So we'll drop it down to 100 and do a 6th round. Just feeling like I got a lot of energy still, so one more round won't hurt. Then we'll do biceps. And 53. And now I'm going to do hammer curls. And I made a little bit of an adjustment with the hammer curls. Focusing more on keeping my elbows like pinned at my sides. Previously, the weight was heavier and I was like kind of like flaring up and then curling the weight in more like this. Now I'm trying to keep my elbows locked just at my sides. The reason being is when I was doing that, as I talked about before, I'm like bracing my core, flexing my glutes so I don't swing. The swinging, or even the effort to prevent it, was causing some tension in my lower back on the right side to kind of accumulate. And then in my mobility sessions, I'm working extra overtime trying to release all the tension. So ultimately the goal is to grow the biceps, not fucking hyperextend my lower back doing a heavier weight. So long story short, the form is much more strict with the curls. And so in between triceps, before I jump into biceps, I'm resting like 2 to 3 minutes. And then I rest 2 to 3 minutes again. So that's how each individual muscle gets close to 6 minutes rest. And I'm resting like 2 to 3 minutes in between any set. I've found that to be a more effective way to train for muscle growth. Done a lot of the like shorter, quick rests, back and forth, ba ba ba. Which doesn't seem to lead to as potent results. Oh, here we go. The 45s. I'll go from the side so you can see the form. Keep my elbows pinned at my sides. So, if you watch the, I don't know, maybe day 21, I was using the 55-pound weights and swinging a lot more. And that's just a way better this way, a small adjustment. So you always look at your training and analyze, like, what could I be doing better? How could I improve my form? How could I change my, like, talked about this a lot over and over again, but I really think it's the way to continue to see progress is to always assess what you're doing and try to find little ways to improve and change, continuously make the sessions more difficult. That's how you avoid plateaus as best you can, as those sneaky little plateaus are inevitable. So I'm going to do one more round, and then we'll check the pump. All right, that's a fucking session. Here's a pro tip for you. If you're doing a front double bicep, let's see if we can get it. Let me move the camera. Having a horizontal light, natural light preferably. If I turn it a little bit like that. Yeah, so there's a window right here. So you stand with a window to one side, and you maybe angle slightly into it. The front double bicep looks way better. The shadow's kind of coming horizontally. Whereas a lot of poses, if you're just standing like this, a light right above you is going to be optimal. But for the front double bicep, light from the side is pretty good. It's pretty what you want. I don't know how this looks. Hopefully it's validating my point. Not the best workout. I kind of got caught chatting with somebody for like 10 minutes in the middle, and it just killed my flow a little bit. And the numbers didn't improve, which for this day, fast and heavy, part of my primary focus is trying to get the numbers to go up, while also balancing that with maintaining good form and focusing on the sensation with the muscle as your number one priority, and then the numbers just below that. But the weight doesn't go up every single fucking day you work out, so that's the way it is. That's arm day 1, or version 1 of the 3-day gauntlet, where there's a variety of different types of training sessions. Not a variety of exercises, though. Hey. So tomorrow will be a little different. Maybe I won't film, I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned. I said I would, so I should. But I like training at that university gym sometimes. I like mixing it up, and I can't film there. So we'll see. Anyways, day 24 in the books. Don't really got much else to say. Usually I can ramble on forever, but we'll make it a little shorter. Have a great fucking day. Peace.